Welcome once again to Ruka, and as you can see, the floodlights are on. Not so much daylight here as we come up towards 2 o'clock in the afternoon for the beginning of the men's 15-kilometer race, a classic style individual 3 rotations of a 5-kilometer loop. Before all that, just a reminder of what comes afterwards: the concluding half of the Nordic combined team sprint, then the mixed relay in Östersund, and then it's across a little later in the afternoon to America for the women's leg, first slalom leg, and then up to Canada to Lake Louise for the men's supergiant slalom, and then the concluding and decisive second leg of the women's slalom from Aspen in Colorado at 9 o'clock Central European time, an hour earlier, of course, for all of you with us across Great Britain and the United Kingdom. So the racers are out, the patrol's out, and this Mike Dixon alongside me as ever.
A race you always look forward to in the season, a nice interval start, 15-kilometer, classic technique.
Yeah, for sure. I was so happy last year here in this place, and for sure I will try to reach again some good results.
And it's a very difficult course. You've been out, I'm sure, testing the skis today, or you will test the skis soon. Really important to have good grip, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure. I think the grip is the most important.
Any strategy when you have interval start? It's you racing the clock. You hear the athletes that are maybe skiing around you from your coaches, but do you have a strategy in your mind for today's race?
No. For sure, every time you have some small plans in the beginning in front of the race, but during the race, very often you have to change it compared to your feelings and compared to the situation. But I like interval starts, and this track for me fits quite well. But this place for me is quite crazy because I have here only super results or super disaster, and we will see.
Well, good luck, and we hope for super results.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Lucas Power there, winner of no less than 5, I think, classic races in this particular discipline. 2009 he was a winner here. That was his first ever win in individual World Cup. So just a couple of minutes to go before the men's individual 15-kilometer classic race. Mike Dixon alongside myself for David Goldstrom. Not much change on the temperature. And the journey, well, instead of 2 loops around the 5 kilometres, it's 3 for the men.
It is, David, and 522, I should say, metres climb from start to finish, and viewed by many as one of the harder courses on the circuit, but certainly not as technical in terms of pace on the descents or tight cornerings. There aren't many of them, so just nothing but hard work from go to finish.
And an interesting statistic is that in the last 8 races over today's distance and in today's style, if you take away the Tour de Ski, there have actually been 8 different winners since 2012. So this has always been a bit more of an open affair, shall we say, for the men. And so I think with pretty well all the chief contenders in the lineup, also of course, Martin Jonsrud Sundby, the World Cup champion of last season, who rounded off the season by winning the final World Cup finale in Falun, last to go. But Alexander Ledkov from Russia's here, Harvey, Jespersen, Halvarsen, Richardson, Northug, Reuter, Paul Goldberg, Lekjanin. These are all big names.
Yeah, looking at the recent training races in both Finland, Sweden and Norway, certainly Polterainen is winning, or was winning on a 10-kilometer classic in Finland. Sundby took the title in Beitostølen over 15 kilometers and took that by a large margin against the best of the Norwegians. So I think, again, Sundby has to be one of the favourites here. We know Ledkov is in form, but that was a freestyle race in Finland, which he won at over 10 kilometers. So the big name's still up there.
So, first man in the gate, this is Ari Lusua, the first man to set the pace in this 15-kilometre classic individual start, the first endurance race of the new Viessmann World Cup season. 96 competitors from 24 countries. The first of the red group, the seeded athletes, goes at 19 minutes past the hour. That is Alexander Besmetnik of Russia, and the last to start will be at 30. Just checking the time here, will be Martin Jonsrud Sundby, the defending World Cup, at 48 minutes past the hour. So a lot can happen in the next 45 minutes before the World Cup champion gets underway. And the light fading, the lights are on as we see the second man. This is Kuhei Shimizu for Japan, and these are really very early pathfinders.
They are, and the conditions, you mentioned the light is beginning to fade. I do wonder, it did happen a little bit yesterday, the temperature dropping 1 or 2 degrees as darkness fell. I don't think it's going to change the conditions, although we did notice, David, that in the earlier race, the women's race, Justyna Kowalczyk began to lose some of the wax on the base of her skis, and the technicians are trying to make it as thin a base of wax as possible, but it does need to last a journey of 10 Ks for the women, 15 for the men. So they need to get the waxing just right.
23-year-old Perttu Huvarinen, a man who, 3 seasons ago took a bronze medal in the 20-kilometre pursuit and a silver in the 20-kilometre mass pursuit and a bronze in the 10-kilometre free. And here's his Finnish teammate, Risto-Matti Hakola. Only 5 World Cup starts to his record. And it'll be another of the Japanese to follow out of the gate, Hiroyuki Miyazawa from Waseda University, and this 23-year-old who's been competing in Junior World as well as under-23 competitions, and he's yet to notch up 20 World Cup starts. But very interesting to see that the Japanese team numerically is developing.
It is, and when you've got at junior level, when this man, in 2011 in Ottawa, came 5th in the 20-kilometre pursuit at a Junior World Champs, it really does show the potential that Japan has if they can carry that junior potential into the senior field, and it does take a number of years to evolve.
Yeah,
then certainly champions.
The cross-country skiers from Japan rejoicing in Noriaki Kasai's ski jumping achievements over the weekend, Friday and Saturday. 3rd on Friday, joint winner on Saturday. How about that in his 43rd year?
Quite amazing, inspiring.
Yeah, and it was the old boys yesterday, Seaman Aman and Kasai getting that joint victory, and really showing that there are no back numbers, and Seaman Aman hoping to achieve the 4 Hills titles, the last remaining gap in his roll of honour. And Kasai, well, he's just got nothing to prove. I mean, Olympic silver medalist by a whisker in Sochi, but he's the athlete that the whole world loves. Doesn't matter which country you come from or which team you support, whoever you do support, you also support Kasai, because he's amazing.
Yeah, and at 43 to still be making the reaction time, the training, the dedication, the time away from family, they're all huge factors in performance.
Hanneman to start his challenge. Represents the United States of America, mid-20s. And this his 10th World Cup start. Next man out of the gate will be Sergei Mikhailyan of Armenia. Now, we don't have too many racers from Armenia. And this guy's been to a couple of Olympic Games and 3 World Championships. He's also competed in the Junior Worlds, and in 2012, which is not that long ago, he was actually 8th in the 10-kilometre Junior World Classic race. So there's a little bit of promise for you. And just looking at this, yes, he's only had 1 distance start in his career.
It's certainly the way he started, the way he moves on his skis. It's certainly he skied from a young age, and Armenia trying to develop and break into this World Cup with good performances.
Yeah, tough though when you're a small team like that with minimal resources.
Well, it is. It's about money. If you can bring technicians along, experts along, backup, split timing, it's such when you look at the Norwegian team, how huge it is in terms of backup, that is what you need to produce the best.
Well, it's a system, it's a machine. Uli Schneider for Switzerland, mid-20s, went to the World Championships 2 seasons ago and finished 25th yesterday in the classic sprint here, so a few World Cup points for that. And he also was in the points in the classic sprint last year in Asiago, and he's also finished in a classic sprint in 23rd place in Liberec in 2013, so that seems to be the area of success for him to date. Kazakhstan, Veliko, 27 years of age. The folks in Almaty very keen to host the 2022 Winter Olympic Games. That'll be decided on the 31st of July next year, and they've got a lot to do. The mountains are impressive, but they've got a lot of infrastructure to build out there, and also they've got air pollution to deal with, just as Beijing have, who are their one and only rival, with the decision from Oslo to pull out.
Yeah, the Norwegians, well, the people didn't want it. They didn't like the idea of it coming back to Norway again. There were many positives, but some negatives. It's good to see. We just saw a little picture there of Andrew Musgrave on his warm-up, his final preparations, and he's there this weekend with Thomas Ramstad on site to assist him. And Muzzy has worked so much, David, on improving his classic technique. And I must say, a great performance last weekend in Beirstolen, coming 18th position from 167 Norwegians, but more notably 18th was just over a minute behind Sundby, who won by 22 seconds. So Andrew Musgrave absolutely in the running, I think, today for one of his best ever classic performances.
Yeah, let's hope so, because I think we both agree that, you know, Sochi was a disappointment.
29th is great for a British result. It is, yeah. It is outstanding. But when he beat Hadestad some 3-4 weeks earlier, the expectations were certainly high. But the sprint, it's always an element of luck. Get the right line, get the right pacing, get the right draw.
But we know even in the Norwegian nationals that he can mix it with the best. So totally. You know, I'm really talking from that point of view. What mystified me, I think we talked about it, wasn't it, the endurance race he did just before the Olympic Games, and I think we both looked at each other and said, what on earth is he doing that for? Well,
that was it. Weekend before going to the Olympics, a 15-kilometre classic the day before a sprint. But well, you make a plan and you have to stick to it. And whether that had any effect or the travelling aspects, who knows? But I always think for major championships, the most important thing when you've got that level of strength and fitness is the mindset and relaxation, cutting travel down. It certainly worked for me all those years ago when I used to compete.
So Japan, Akira Lenting, member of Team Akira. I'm not quite sure what Team Akira is. He hails from Nagano, of course, the host for the 1998 Winter Olympic Games. And it's another man who's shown some form 3-4 years ago in the Junior Worlds. 5th over 10-kilometre classic start, also 5th over the 20-kilometre mass pursuit start. So Japanese with little bits and pieces of form, you know, but it's really difficult, Mike. You know this. There are so many who have reasonable, decent results as juniors, but then find it really hard to translate into the senior ranks.
It takes time, doesn't it? We saw Johaug today, a 26-year-old, really coming to the top of her game. So yes, if you've been a top-class junior, as Johaug was, she did come in and winning races, but it does take a good number of years to mature. And I think for the likes of Andrew Musgrave, he's still maturing. A great junior, a great senior, but I think we'll see the best from him at 24, 25, 26-year-old.
Yeah, what we really need is about 2 or 3 more of him. So the thing about Andrew is that he needs probably, it would be really good if we had at least 1 more, ideally 2, who were sort of coming up to Andrew's standard, so they could really push each other a bit. That would be really helpful. As it is, Andrew's done, I think, the right thing by spending so much of his life in Norway and working with better racers.
Oh, without a doubt. And of course Andrew Young is up there. Andrew Young is competing so well. Raced in Gala yesterday and again against top Norwegians. Massively competitive, so there is huge momentum, and through the Huntley Club as well and the British Development Squad. So there is an energy there, a development there that does seem to be working.
Well, the early starters up the first 1400 metres in about 3:33. The Armenian with the early best time. And there's quite a bit of competition between these early starters, because what they do is to make their own personal target, and they also look amongst each other, the first 30, to see who they want to be ahead of at the end of the race. Realistically, they know they're not going to beat the likes of Sundby or indeed Legkov, but it's really important to have a realistic target, and just that little bit of a target that pushes you.
Totally, you need that, and you've always got the athlete ahead of you who's ranked that little bit lower than you. You want to try and catch them, as Malishev's showing us here. He's closing down on the athlete ahead of him, and this is a good performance from the man from Kazakhstan.
Just on his way, Keishin Yoshida for Japan. Full team here for the Japanese. That's another good sign. And this is Matthias Vibo for France from Chamonix. Experienced Frenchman. Has got one or two points in classic style as well over today's distance. And another Frenchman to follow him out of the gate there. Adrian Bachscheider will be the next man to start. And the under-23 skiathlon champion of the world, Bachscheider, I should say, last year in Val di Fiemme. Here is the man himself, and that's no mean achievement to win the under-23 worlds. Under-23 is really important. It's another stepping stone. It keeps athletes interested and alive in the sport. It was designed for exactly that purpose, so that there was a stepping stone between juniors and becoming a senior athlete. And by and large, it works well.
I think it does for countries as strong as Norway, Sweden, Russia. You don't really get into those national teams until you're 24 or 25, so it's the under-23 champs. Give that milestone, give that carrot to keep you interested, focused, and pushing the results.
Sweden's Martin Johansson, a respectable 13th last year in the 50-kilometre classic in Oslo towards the end of the season. And here's Italy's De Fabiani in red. We can't, neither Mike or myself, get over the fact that the Italians have gone for red. Not quite sure who came up with that idea. But I think it's, you know, for me, Mike, I think, you know, wearing close as you can, or an indication of national colours, really helps to pick out athletes, particularly on the longer distance races where, you know, you've got a great bunch of 15 or 20. It really does help if they've got distinctive colours. It does, and with the blue, which Italy has showcased for so many years, where let us know always where they were at what part of the race. Yeah, and when I say that, I don't mean just for us. I mean for spectators as well, who are, you know, set sometimes well back from the course. And it's good to see your favourites and be able to pick them out. Yeah, definitely. Dreihaug for Norway. He's in good form, as last weekend showed us up in Norway. And as expected, David, just at the 1.2 kilometre marker, Andrew Musgrave has taken the lead by 2.3 seconds. And he's gone through there in 3:31. Yeah, ahead of the Armenian Mikhailian, that's and Zinov. So Musgrave, interesting to see whether he can maintain this Pathfinder position. Never easy to go that early, but what he's got to do is to run his own race. Giorgio Di Centa at the other end of the scale. I always think that Giorgio's going to retire, but, you know, no, you know, he just loves to be amongst the action, you know. 5 times an Olympian, and he's been to, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 World Championships.
And gunning for his 11th in February in Falun, Sweden. And he still performs, though, David, at the highest level.
Yeah, I doubt there'll be a better day than winning the 50-kilometre freestyle finale, though, in Pragelato. And they won the relay, so that's got to be the high point. But you know, he's enjoying his racing. That's the main thing. Nusiainen for Finland. Finns, they've really got to rebuild this men's team.
It's a long time in the rebuilding, isn't it? But we do have the big names. Niskanen, who I think will have a top class. Juha Järvi, there he is. There are big names, and I think Niskanen today can challenge for a podium, which would be something special.
Östersen, a man who just started there, another good result for him last season in the 50-kilometre Mass Start Classic in Oslo, 10th place. Nothing shabby about that.
Top class. Number 3 just coming up from Finland on his second rotation at 6.4.
Hyvarinen.
Very still, quiet day. Not any movement in the trees. No snow blowing off the trees. We have seen that in some years where it's been a bit of a gale here coming off the lake.
Yeah, I think actually with a -6-degree temperature, I think they're all pretty happy that there isn't any winds to speak of here, because that obviously makes life a lot more comfortable. And Dario Colonia. Well, I don't know what you can say about Dario Colonia, but he is the Olympic champion, of course. And he'd come back after a truly disrupted season building up to the Winter Olympic Games, and just came back with a bang.
I think what he did, David, was just bordering on amazing, because he badly twisted his ankle in October in Davos, out training, bounding up the hills, ski bounding as many cross-country skiers do. Damaged all the ligaments in his ankle, couldn't put weight on it for 5-6 weeks, but absolutely straight back into training in the swimming pool and the gym. And then to come back and get that 15 in his second race, to come back and take the Olympic gold medal in the classic technique, was just a small miracle.
Andrew Musgrave.
3.1, looking as ever focused and gives his best at every millimetre on the track.
What is it about him, Mike, that, you know, gives us such great hope for him?
Everything about Andrew is special. From the age of 10, when he was a young kid, he just had this lovely positivity and this desire to go out and always push hard. So he is a very easy athlete, I think, to coach.
Supportive parents.
Great parents. Of course, Hillary and and Frank. Brilliant support, and they're still working for the club where Andrew was developed, up in Huntly. And yes, supportive all the way through. His brother and his sister, of course, into cross-country skiing as well. And started at a young age. I think that's the key, on skis up in North America.
And then, you know, absolutely the right move to go to Norway and work, test yourself against the best, find out how they do it.
You can't, you know, Thomas Ramstad up there with them now as coach, and alongside up in Trondheim, the best athletes, training with the best athletes. For someone as special as Andrew, that's got to be key. Put him inside competitors that he can catch and train with and learn from, and that's exactly what he's done.
Love to see him get a result at the World Championships, and let's hope that can happen. Just another footnote on Dario Colonia. We talk about the 15-kilometre classic. That was astonishing. He then, of course, went on to take the skiathlon gold as well. I mean, just absolutely amazing, given, you know, the whole basis of his season was just destroyed with that ankle problem.
Most athletes it would have destroyed, and maybe they would not have got up and made the Olympic Games. And I honestly think, David, as well, he would have medalled in the 50-kilometre, but he fell, and his ankle was still a little weak, remember. He still suffered a little pain. He fell with, I think, about 1.5 kilometres to go, and he was in that top lead pack of about 8-10 people, and I'm convinced he would have come through to medal had he not fallen. And he fell, of course, in that same race, the 50-kilometre, 4 years earlier, on the final bend when he was in bronze medal position with 100 metres to go.
So I've still got Musgrave ahead at 3.1 kilometres, early days. 42 away there, Martin Jaks for the Czech Republic, an experienced achiever.
Junior world silver medalist in the 10K Classic. Well, some years ago now for Jaks.
Didn't qualify this man yesterday for the sprints. Bit surprised about that, but Joseph Wenzel, interesting to see what he can do. He's had a victory in World Cup. But Wenzel, I've always regarded him more in the sprint phase than anything else. Yesterday was 48th, so that was in the time trial prologue. So Johansson coming up here.
Musgrave still leading. Johansson's a great person to benchmark yourself against, and Muzzy ahead of him. Good news for the Brits.
Yeah, Malyshev, the Kazakh, down in third place at this particular timing point, 3.1 kilometers into the race. And then Ales Razim of the Czech Republic, Huvarinen of Finland, 5 seconds off. And this is Artur Yegoyan, another of the Armenians, who tested himself at the skiathlon in Sochi and found that quite a test. Finished outside the top 50. We're getting ever nearer to the start of the red group athletes. So at 3.1 kilometers, as you can see now, Andrew Musgrave has been eclipsed there by half a second by Nicholas Druhag of Norway, a name and a man who he'll be very familiar with from club and national racing in Norway. And here's Nusiainen, and you can see Nusiainen there only going into fourth place. So Musgrave's had the better of him by a couple of seconds, but it is only 3.1 kilometers. Let's just keep that in perspective. Musgrave at 5 kilometers, the end of the first loop, 12 minutes and 9.3 seconds. That's 3.5 seconds ahead of Ales Razim of the Czech Republic and 6 ahead of Huvarinen of Finland. But Musgrave doing what he needs to do, and also needs to manage his energy. In the early years, it was noticeable that he'd go off like a bat out of hell and run out of gas very early in the, well, not very early, but the last 3-4 kilometers of the race, he didn't have anything really in the tank. These days, his energy management is a lot improved. And
we could see that when Andrew came up this hill, there wasn't that complete aggression. There was total focus on sliding like this, reaching forward with the foot as far up into the hill as you can. And you need to keep a more stable tempo to do just that, as Dario Colonia, off form, comes up the hill. Mike, when you're running up here, and this is a 15-kilometer journey, so it's not the longest, but it's still a decent distance to go. What's going through your mind? What's Dario Colonia thinking about? Well, it's interesting, and comparing what Lucas Bauer was saying. Oh, I'm just going to stop here. Here's Andrew Musgrave. He's gone through the first loop, 22 there, and you can see he's got ahead of the man wearing bib number 21. That's Graham Killick from Canada, who started 30 seconds ahead of him. I like, again, the composed look from Andrew, bib 22 there. He's still keeping the efficiency, maintaining the energy output, and this is good news for Andrew. Yeah, the other guy behind him, the Canadian, is really just fighting to stay with Andrew at the moment. You can see that Andrew's composed, you know, a little bit more upright than the Canadian here, but he's, you know, he's marching, he's running really well, and those shoulders are over the toes there, getting that good power through. Very much so, and he's extending his lead there. He was just 3.5 ahead of Razim at the 5 kilometers. He's extending that further and further as he goes along the track, and again, it's management of energy. Andrew certainly looks he's got that under control. Juha Järvi, you'll want a top 5. Well, you know, this is the man really who was the sort of the journeyman really until, you know, getting an Olympic medal with the team. And, you know, this is
Jojärvi, 33 years of age. He's been, you know, really a consistent racer for them. And, you know, when you look at his performances in World Cup, he's had just the one victory in a long career.
Nukler just tucked in behind 48 there. Babikov. So Nukler one lap behind.
So Didrik Tønseth, the Norwegian factory of cross-country skiing, working again now, this 23-year-old Trondheimer, who was top 10 in the Junior Worlds 2 or 3 seasons ago, but perhaps the most notable was the fact that he got a bronze finish, a third-place finish last season in the 15-kilometre classic in Lillehammer. That, by far, his best performance. Finland, Ketelai.
I think Tønseth, going back to Tønseth, who just started ahead there by a few seconds, I think he has the potential. Remember last year, you met the third place in Lillehammer in the 15k classic. His form coming into the season, Tønseth, is very, very good. Came second, in fact, to Sundby last weekend in Beiristoven, so he'll want to start his season with another medal.
Well, that's right. In 2013, he was fourth in La Clusa pretty early on in the season in the 15-kilometre classic mass start there. So it's a question of whether, you know, at 23, still strengthening. And it's just a question whether he can actually not only start the season but sustain his challenge.
Indeed. I think Yevgeny Belov there starting for Russia, of course a wonderful junior in terms of performances. I think they tend to over-race the young Russians, as he was raced so much in the last couple of years. I think he still has huge potential though to take many titles in cross-country skiing over his future.
Well, he's got 4 runners-up spots and a gold medal in the under-23 Worlds over the last 3 years. So, as you rightly say, it's whether he can translate that against the very best. But again, runner-up in 50-kilometre mass start in Poreba in Poland last year. But of course, a mass start, the tactics are totally different. And
in all fairness, a lot of the field had not turned up, or the best in the world had avoided that one leading into the Olympics. Johaug.
So Johansson ahead of Musgrave by 5.2 seconds at 6.4 kilometres. And now Kolonia, Turishev of Russia, they're both ahead. Østensen all ahead of Musgrave, who now at 5 kilometres through the stadium finds himself down in 6th place, 15 kilometres behind Sergei Turishev of Russia. So Niskanen, I know that you've got positive thoughts about the performance of this man going forward. I honestly think today he can medal, and he certainly set out an incredible early pace there. Is it too fast, too soon? Can he manage his energy supply? Maurice the Magnificat. Well, on his day, everyone has to keep on the right side of this man. The trouble is that he doesn't have many of those days, but you know, when it comes together, he can be a real force to be reckoned with. Last year he won in Davos on the 30-kilometre freestyle race. The season before, the skiathlon in Canmore in 2013. The year before that, he was runner-up in Davos. So, you know, he has got early season form, Magnificat. I was going to say, well, he lives at high altitude in France, and he does a lot of preparation on the glacier in Tignes at 2,400 metres, and therefore the red blood cells in his body, possibly you could argue, are at very high levels, which help you around these race courses earlier on in the season, and that's maybe why he has his early good form. And there it says, the Oslo 15-kilometre classic world champion, Matti Häkkinen. He wasn't really in that sort of form last season at all, but you can't rule him out. He's 30, so plenty of years ahead of him. Dario Colonia just coming up to challenge Turishev, the Russian who, at least on a piece of paper, wouldn't be suggesting that he's going to threat. But Colonia, 6.2, of course, he's got to work his way back into the World Cup after last season, despite those two unbelievable performances in the Olympics.
Well, that's right. He missed his leg off just posing for a photo. But, of course, Colonia missing, as you said earlier, so many of the races when he was injured. World ranking drops, and that's why he's an early starter. But that will change after today. Halverson looking so focused.
Yeah, I really like this racer. He has got determination. He's very gutsy. He comes from Falun Borlänge. How they're surely not going to leave him out of the team, because I can remember, if you remember the 4x10 kilometer relay in Val di Fiemme, and it was Halvarsen who really made that and brought everything home for them. And a terrific team player, but a man who has yet to get to the podium in less than 50 starts, though, for the World Cup. Järvi up at 3.1. Niskanen and his teammates, and just to give you an idea, Niskanen and Musgrave separated by 17 seconds at that particular point, 3.1 kilometers. So Niskanen's no slouch, so that's still decent. And Hellner now, the Olympic silver medalist from Sochi in the skiathlon, and the sprint champion of the world back in Oslo 2011, out for his challenge. If Heikkinen and Hellner could come back to the best form, then they would form a very strong part of the Swedish challenge in Falun.
I think the Swedes, will be going in the relays. We often see them creating their own magic, and I think there'll be quite a bit of pressure on them to produce as usual in the relay. And they're always such a relaxed team, the Swedes. Will the pressure even get to them? I think it probably does. Every home nation feels a little bit of that, but often it lifts the home nation. As we
remember, their waxmen was superb in Sochi.
Couldn't have been better in difficult conditions.
Chalk and cheese between the Norwegians. Norwegians have got this massive background of service support, but it was the Swedes who won that honour.
It's quite strange how the Norwegians got it wrong. Maybe with so many technicians out there, it gets a little confused. But you need one leader calling the shots. I think they just managed to over-confuse themselves trying to get it so right. They got it wrong.
Jean-Marc Gaillard, always to be respected, but I would rather put him down for a longer race, 30 kilometres, 50 kilometres. That's where he tends to show up rather well.
I have to say, David, at 5 kilometres, Niskanen's just gone through with that 16-second lead. That's a huge lead, and Turchev has got an 18 seconds lead on the next person, so it's quite outstanding performance early on from Niskanen.
Yeah, and then just to, I was saying how Musgrave at 3.1 was 17 seconds down. At 5 kilometres, that stretched to 31.6 seconds. So that just gives you an idea of what Niskanen's doing at the moment in his part of the race.
He is a super talent, Niskanen, but I think the enthusiasm of wanting to put himself on the podium here, and I really think he will do, is he running too hard in the first half of this race?
Now Bezmetnik, who leads here for Russia at the 6.4 kilometre point. At this point, he has a 21-second advantage over Musgrave. But Bezmetnik was actually 18 seconds behind Niskanen at 5 kilometres. So this will be interesting. He's still got 100 metres to go. So has Niskanen opened that and extended that 18-second gap?
He's just making it look so easy, David, but if you have a look at the debris, the foam coming out of his mouth, he is on maximum tolerance at the moment, is Niskanen.
Yeah, but here you come. There's that 18-second difference, and actually Bezmetnik has gone a little bit faster actually in that 1400 metres. So very interesting. And you see that Niskanen does lead, but only by 16 seconds. Turishev 19 seconds back. To Colonia 26. Drahag of Norway 26.8. Østersen of Norway, 29.7. Tim Schanke of Germany, 32 seconds off the pace. Musgrave, 37.4 behind Niskanen, 6.4 kilometres, so not quite at the half distance.
Well, it will be interesting to see how that unfolds. And
well, it's going to be interesting to see whether Musgrave can actually find a little bit of pace and time in the second half of the race.
I think he can, David, as Lukas Bauer lines up, because for the first time in his classic, Musgrave has worked on it. He's keeping his technique together, and with his phenomenal engine, I think he can open up in the second half.
Well, it was a bronze medal at Whistler in 2010 in 15-kilometre freestyle for Lukas Bauer. And he can race both codes very effectively, classic and freestyle. This is absolutely his distance, and whether it's classic or freestyle is effective, but anything else doesn't really happen for him. 15 kilometres is the business for him. And
it was interesting at the start of the programme, the interview with Lukas Bauer, when asked, you know, so what are your plans as you race around? And you can't have plans. Will always change. You make a plan, but you have to be able to evolve with that plan. As he said, you make small plans, and then you have to react to pacing, timings, how you feel, and adjust plans as you go along.
Heikkinen
slipping.
But we were talking about this a little earlier, Mike. You know, you've raced in your life as a six-time Olympian biathlete, you know, but well, you know, when you leave the range, for example, and you're going around a 2.5 kilometre loop, I know it's not quite the same as this, but how do you keep your mind there? Because I guess, you know, it's all too easy to drift off.
It really is, and you have to, in a sense, you can always not even remember what you're doing. So you have to be in this plane of just being focused on the ability to push hard, but maintain as good a balance on your skis as possible, as efficient a balance in all movements. I often used to have a song in my head come into my head, don't plan it, and that would take me into an almost trance-like state. I was lucky enough as well, obviously, first Olympics was cross-country in Sarajevo, and then 2 World Championships in cross-country as well.
Legjanin, one of the real talents, at 32 years of age, and the runner-up in Sochi over 50 kilometres in the freestyle race, 4th in the skiathlon, and in the World Championships in Oslo, also runner-up over the 50-kilometre freestyle, as well as the 30-kilometre mass pursuit. And in 2009 in Liberec, he was the runner-up, so close so many times. But he won a 15-kilometre classic race last season. That was the one in Poland. 3 victories to his career, and 3.1 kilometres now. Halvarsen coming up here to try and get close, or as close as he can, to Niskanen's time. But Niskanen has really set a target here.
I get the feeling, we haven't seen Niskanen for a while, David, but just his the stress state that his face looked in, I think we might see him Niskanen dropping back on his pace a little, which will give food to those chasing, realising as soon as they realise he's beginning to slow down, it'll give them energy.
84 on the way, Shurota, a bronze medal at the last World Championships in skiathlon in Val di Fiemme, and a runner-up 2 seasons ago in Canmore in the classic mass start over today's distance. That was his one and only runners-up spot. And still they start here. It's a pretty big start list here.
Hellner having to go into the herringbone quite early on this hill, indicating his wax isn't gripping quite as well as some. And, well, therefore, maybe his nearly 12 seconds behind. That's got to be worrying with only 3 kilometres achieved.
Poltaranin, well, again, a man who at his best is a danger to everybody. Representing Kazakhstan.
And I think, David, as we watch him going around the tracks here, you'll see very few technically better than Polterainen. And it's his efficiency. For every compression of work that he gives, he's got this wonderful long-reaching glide. So efficient.
Runner-up in Lillehammer early on last season in the 15-kilometre classic there. At the clubhouse, sitting in the nice furry chair at the moment, is Perttu Huberinen of Finland, who has finished his race in 36:35.5 ahead of Ristomatti Hakola of Finland in 25 seconds back. And then, in fact, Algo Karp of Estonia has just gone into second place, 7 seconds off that. And just looking a little bit further down the pace, Musgrave, believe it or not, I'm not quite sure. We've got, yeah, he's
still out there at the moment.
He's about 18. Well, if the finish time is correct, they've just put him in at 18. No, this cannot be right, I don't think, at the moment.
No, I've got him in second place at the second last, after 32 minutes of racing. So the second last time check, second place by 18 seconds to Nukla.
Yeah, that'll be about right. 89 getting away. This is Jesper Modin. More familiar, I have to say, in the sprints. This tall figure really puts himself around physically in the sprints and can be quite intimidating.
Giant of a man, just short of 2 meters tall, Modin.
And Jespersen, fourth in the overall World Cup, as you can see there, last year to Martin Sundsby. And a 6th place finish in the 15 Classic in Sochi.
7th here last year, although it was only a 10-kilometer last year in Ruka.
Well, another tall figure, Daniel Rickardsson, and there's a famous achievement there under his personal victory there, Holmenkollen 50. I mean, that is so special to win that, and particularly it was in classic style. I know it was mass start, so the purists don't really count that. They're still very traditional in Norway. Unless it's an individual start, you're not on that very famous Roll of Honour, but it's still something to win on that track. So Druhag coming up here now.
This is good, 27.9 ahead of Fabiani. And so easy is the efficiency of movements. Now trying to slide the foot as far into the hill as possible.
Interesting, Druhag and Musgrave were pretty even in the very early stages of the race. There was about a second between them. Musgrave just the quicker. 94, Alexander Legkov, another imposing figure. If not in height, certainly in width.
And he's one of these athletes that is just his work rate, his work ethic, his ability to push himself into this zone where it really, really is uncomfortable. He's one of the best at doing that. Technically, in skating and classic, a little tense, therefore burning up more energy, but one heck of a worker.
Yeah, and the Olympic champion, of course, you know, Russia were looking for that victory at the Winter Olympic Games, and, you know, he comes up with the big one, the one that, you know, the president of Russia, Putin, was looking for him to win the 50-kilometer race. Hails from Khanty-Mansiysk, which I've never been to, but you have, and I understand it's a winter wonderland with bright, shiny lights in the main street.
It's amazing. They built a city when they found oil. I went there before they found the oil, and they've got this shiny, gleaming city. Quite a wonderful place it is.
So Northug now. Petter Northug, who exceeded my assessments yesterday when he finished a very decent second. And Martin Sunsby underway, and the whole field now has started. Well, you can see Drihag there in the Norwegian strip coming towards the finish. I can tell you that Bruno Nokler from Italy is in the lead in the clubhouse, 36.10.2. Andrew Musgrave, who made a few seconds back on Nokler in the last kilometre, finished in second place at the moment, 36.25.9, which is a respectable time. How respectable, we'll find out, because obviously Niskanen still is the man who's making the pace in the mid part of the field. But Drihag, now remember, early on there was nothing between Musgrave, but Drihag has really made time in the second half of the race.
A good overall performance, a steady performance there from Drihag. The Russian boys are so efficient, more so in the classic technique maybe than the freestyle. And
Besmertnik of Russia at the penultimate time check, actually only 2.2 seconds behind Drihag, and he wears bib number 38. But this is the man who is in the lead in the clubhouse, but he's not going to win the race. There are faster men who are coming still. And there's the finish, and there you can see Musgrave now a minute down on Drihag.
I think, sorry, David, I think the lead time is going to drop below 35 minutes, just below, maybe 34, 50, 55 as the winning time.
So now 3.1 kilometres. Now this is, just looking at this, the first checkpoint. Alex Harvey was actually behind Paul Goldberg, who is travelling fastest of all at the moment, 5.7 seconds. So I'm just having a look at this. Isn't Paul Goldberg, it's Legjanin, 3:23.7 up the first 1,400 metres, and that is 2 seconds faster than Niskanen. And Jojärvi 2.3 seconds behind Legjanin, and Martin Jonsrud Sundby, the World Cup winner from last season, 2.8 seconds back. And Daniel Rickardson 3.3, Kalle Halvarsson 3.5, Matti Häkkinen 3.6. So there's a great bundle of talent together up the first 1,400 metres.
So tight, and with the minute intervals between the key players in the red group, they have every opportunity to get the timing from the athlete ahead of them. Østensen just beginning to fatigue, David, in the last 3 kilometres, just dropping off a little.
Niskanen is going to be a big key to this, because I'm just looking at 3.1 kilometres between him and Legjanin. There was not much to choose at all. 5 kilometres, Niskanen ahead of Legjanin by 4.3 seconds. So interesting. And then at 6.4 kilometres, Niskanen ahead, but Legjanin still to get there. So Niskanen really is a key to this. Now Rickardson, who was 3.3 seconds down on Legjanin up the first 1,400 metres, now going up to 3.1 kilometres on the journey.
This could suit Rickardson, his teammate right beside him, on a fresher set of legs, on 1 lap less. Now, if they work together, you often can get that drag-on effect from 68. That's Halvarsson. But, well, 92. If 68 can just hang on in there, Halvarsson, it will help his game.
So, Rickardson 6.2 seconds. So that means in 1,600 metres, he's actually dropped 3 seconds. And here's Niskanen up at 13.1 kilometres. So still 1,900 metres to get home.
Fading, David. I think he is fading. You can just see the suffering now. Every cell, every fibre in his body hurting, but it's still a great time.
19 seconds. So I'm just trying to think. That's 13.1, isn't it? Let me just relate that with Drihag at before. Niskanen was 21 seconds ahead of Drihag at the earlier check at 11.4 kilometres. So his time is evaporating. Here comes Besmertnik, plus 7.1 behind Druhag, and just having a look at that, he was actually, Besmertnik was actually, what, 4 seconds ahead of Druhag.
Look at Legkov.
So actually, Besmertnik lost 11 seconds in the, just having a check on this, in the last 3.6 kilometers.
And I think that does indicate more the Driehaug finish, the incredible finish that he had in relation to Östensen as well, and many others, and Niskanen losing that 2 seconds. Lekov, as I mentioned, way down, David, 14 seconds off the pace.
Now Sundby in good form, early season good form.
Wonderful form last weekend, destroying the 167 in the field over in Beidestollen, but he's got his work cut out left of the track there. There he is with a beard.
Totally dominated the World Cup, won it with 1,534 points to Legkov's 980. But sometimes you can't read too much into that, because every racer has different tactics about what they plan to do for the season. But just sheerly on mathematics, he just completely annihilated it. But Sundby there, up 3.1 kilometers, and just looking at it, was 8-second deficit, and he was only 2.8 behind Legjanin at 1.4.
Well, I think Legjanin, here he is, has started so strong. An element of dropping off the pace a little here, equal with Niskanen.
Yeah, absolutely right. So it just shows you, can Niskanen hang on? How much is he going to lose? That's the real question here. So, striding strongly, and Legjanin. There you can see Niskanen, 1.5, Järvi. But this is very early in the race, 3.1 kilometers. So take this with a pinch of salt. Petter Northug there, 14.2 seconds back, running at about the same time as Legkov, as you can see.
Just looking back down the track, David, we haven't seen much of Petter Northug. He's in 17th position. And that's, what, some 14 seconds behind at 3 kilometers. Niskanen, he needs everything technically to work up here. He needs to try and find a little more pace up this final climb.
Yeah, Niskanen coming to the finish now, and this is the finish that everybody's going to be really looking at now.
The demand for oxygen is massive, especially on this final climb when everything's in discomfort, on a high pain threshold at the moment. He needs to keep, and he is keeping the efficiency, sliding the skis through.
Now, Niskanen at the last check was 19 seconds clear of Druhag. Now he's in the back straight here. He's still got to get to the top. Here he goes, coming round to the final 100 metres. There's Druhag of Norway, his team, well, not his teammate, his opponent. And you can see here that 19 seconds has been shrinking. And Niskanen's going to get there. He is going to take the lead. But 19 seconds has shrunk by faded. Almost 7 seconds.
He has faded badly just in the last 1.5, and that's what early pace can take out of the legs.
Järvi. Now, Järvi was losing time to Niskanen. And Järvi 15 seconds off at 13.1 kilometers. And Niskanen and Järvi, well, actually, I'm going to, at 11.4 kilometers, actually, there was only 15 seconds between them. So Järvi actually travelling rather well at the moment.
Great start.
And given that Niskanen faded, has Järvi perhaps now managed his energy? Can he eat back in that 14 seconds?
Possibly. I'm not, without a doubt, Niskanen did fade, but Driehaug, I think, had a phenomenal end part to his race, so he's a little deceptive there.
But Järvi's got at 11.4 kilometres, he had 7 seconds over Driehaug. So still open. It's still open. And we've got to see what the likes of Sundby does in the second half of the race as well.
And you know, a lot of those later starters, they're ranked higher in the World Cup, David, and they're aware that a lot of athletes ahead of them have put in incredible starts. Now, they'll be trying to run their own pacing, their own race, fully aware that Niskanen's had an amazing start, Legianen's had an amazing start, but they'll be trying to control their own race without losing it too early.
Well, not even halfway, but when you see the name Niskanen on the left there, it reminds you that, of course, he's the under-23 15-kilometre classic world champion of last season, and also heading for his first podium, very possibly. But here's Joujärvi. Niskanen looks up, and it'll be interesting to see what happens here, because at 13.4 kilometres, Joujärvi was 16 seconds down, but he's still got to get into the stadium. And this just shows you the pace that Niskanen was able to apply.
Well, Joujärvi is not going to take the new lead. It will be tight. I think it'll be maybe 6 or 7 seconds.
Yeah, and that would actually indicate that Joujärvi has actually also managed his energy pretty well. 75 metres to go, so he had a 15-second deficit at 13.4 kilometres, and he's reduced that at the finish to 12. So he's made a couple of seconds, but into the clubhouse at the finish of the race. At the moment, we have Finland 1, Finland 2, Niskanen, and then Joujärvi, and then Druhaug has dropped to third place. Besmetnik of Russia's off the podium. Östersen of Norway, that's Simon Östersen, 28 seconds off. Devon Kershaw of Canada's finished in 7th place at the moment, 42 seconds back. Nusiainen, 56 seconds. And let me try. Andrew Musgrave, a minute 16.5 behind Niskanen.
That's great racing from Muzzy, and I think we can't write off Sundby yet. Look, it's half distance, less than half distance, and he's only a tiny margin behind. This man knows how to pace. He's getting all the split times, so he's still a real threat out there, Sundby.
Yeah, Sundby, at this moment, in the context of the race, he's 6.4 seconds behind Legianen and Niskanen, who were tied on time. And, of course, we can't forget Legianen either. What's Legianen got in terms of a finish? There is exactly what I've been explaining. Joujärvi, you see, 8.8 seconds back. That stretched to 15, and then he found a couple of seconds back on that. So, as you say, this is not over yet.
It's not over yet. I think we're going to see Legianen beginning to drop off the pace. Just his body language, last time we saw him, kind of indicated that. We'll have to wait and see at the next checkpoint.
And there's Andrew Musgrave outside the top 30, so I'm afraid no World Cup point for his efforts today. But
I think he'll be delighted with he'll, I think, finish in that 34th, 35th position, which is an outstanding performance in a field of nearly 100, 96 of the best in the world.
So Belov, and well out of this.
He started well. A number of the Russian athletes, Legianen, another one, Leykov didn't start so well. A number of them started well, Turishev, and have died a death during the race. The enthusiasm, David, of first World Cup, your first run out, matching up after 7-8 months of hard training. You've got this enthusiasm, the butterflies in your stomach are tingling, and you really maybe have carried too much enthusiasm in the first part of the race for some of the athletes.
So Ivo, yes, we've got the message, Ivo.
What was that, Poncer?
Halvarsen.
Well, as I think I said, these two are running side by side, which certainly helps. Both in a drag on and a working together from Sweden. It's good 5th position, and he's picking up the pace all the time.
He's a fighter, Halvarsen.
He really is. So the Swedes have come in on form. David, this is Nelson. We saw the sparks of magic last year from this young athlete, and starting the season very, very well.
Interesting there. We haven't given any credit, really. Nelson coming into 9th place in the finish, but Martin Jaks of the Czech Republic, the best for his country, actually 47 seconds behind Niskanen. That's a respectable effort.
It is. It is a great start for Martin Jaks, and he was an extremely good junior Jaks, and then had dropped off when he came into the senior side, so good to see him coming back strong.
Good team relay man.
Always, isn't he? Hellner was one of these athletes, David, as well, a number of years ago, who was much better in the freestyle than the classic. He's worked an awful lot on his classic. He used to cow kick or bend the leg as he kicked back, which doesn't counterbalance you quite the same, but he's worked hard to improve that. Losing a lot of energy up this one. Slipping like mad there for Hellner.
Yeah, his balance not that good, and that's costing him, using more energy than he really would like to actually just make that little lip over the top. Well, at interval number 5, which is a check that we get at 8.1 kilometers, so just over the half distance. Niskanen at that point 7 seconds better than Legjanin, and 9 better, almost 10 better than Järvi, and similarly to Sundby. Question is whether Sundby can actually find something in the last 6-7 kilometers. Not impossible.
Definitely not impossible. Another one of the Finns. So Heikkinen coming in at the top level at the moment, 6th position, only 32 seconds behind. They're in incredibly good form, the Finnish athletes.
Yeah, just over 30 seconds separating the top 6, which continues to be at this moment Niskanen, Järvi, and then Druhag of Norway, the best for his country. Desmetnik, the best for Russia at the moment. Østersen for Norway in 5th place, and then Heikkinen, as you said, going into 6th. Tønseth of Norway, decent run in 7th place, Mike. Less than 40 seconds down. De Fibiani of Italy in 8th. Devon Kershaw at the moment the best for Canada, but Alex Harvey may have something to say about that. And Lars Nelson for Sweden completing the top 10. Those are the men who are in the clubhouse.
Yaparov slipping bad. Look at that. You cannot really function efficiently when there's no grip on your skis. So he's having to spread the skis, get the edges in. As he runs up on the side snow, it's much more grip outside of the cut tracks.
Legjanin, of course, is through 10 kilometers, and the gap there, Niskanen has stretched it to 11.8 seconds. And that means that Legjanin was actually travelling a couple of seconds slower than Järvi at that particular point. So Halvarsen at that point, 2/3 through the race, 24 seconds off Niskanen, and 27 at the finish. So didn't lose that much, but didn't really gain anything. Paul Goldberg at 10 kilometers was 31 seconds behind Niskanen.
Well, Niskanen's got to be feeling the smile seems to be getting bigger and bigger as the race goes on.
He's never made a World Cup podium.
Yes. Incredible athlete.
You know, he's really sort of burst upon the scene.
And well, Sundby,
and he's only 22. That's the other thing.
Yeah,
I mean, if you were thinking about the 2017 Nordic Ski World Championships in Lahti, there providing he stays fit and well, is the man, because that's the situation in the clubhouse there.
Finland 1, 2 and 7 might change a little, hiking and dropping down maybe to 10th position by the end of the day.
Well, Bauer, not his day, not his race.
What did he say at the start? He said either he has an amazingly good day, and which he has, he's won the race here before,
or it's rubbish,
or a very bad one. I think it's the second. It's not bad actually. A minute behind at 13k, so it's going to be a minute 15 behind. It's good racing.
I think again, if he can stay fit and well, he's a big occasion racer these days. You know, he's got to the age now where, you know, he cannot possibly compete right through the program. He's got to pick and choose, and he's got to try to get his timing absolutely spot on to deliver himself when it really matters. You know, this man's been a force in the Tour de Ski. You know, I think, you know, for the World Championships, that's what he wants to be on peak for the World Championships.
He really does, and he's still having problems with his Achilles. So many problems over the years with his Achilles, and that happens with older athletes. There's a lot of wear and tear in the body through 1,200 hours training each year. For some, not for all.
Now, Northug at 10 kilometres was 40 seconds down on Niskanen.
Well,
so you can see it at 3 more
56
kilometres, and that's another 16 seconds that have gone west.
The head is going
south or wherever.
Or out the back of his skis. He did do well yesterday, as you said, where unexpectedly.
Well, I actually think he overperformed yesterday.
Yeah, he saw the chance. He was given that lucky loser slot, and he's so competitive. His brain took him to that second place.
Now Legjanin
slipping like mad now. Look at him, he's dragging himself up on his ski poles.
At 10 kilometres, 2/3 distance, he was 11.8 kilometres. Sorry, 11.8 seconds behind Niskanen. 11.8. That's almost tripled.
I have to say, I honestly think that his wax has come off his skis. You can see the amount of force through his ski poles, so that isn't helping him right now. This man's got to be feeling good.
Well, the big question for me is, can Martin Jonsrud Sundby make 13 seconds in 5 kilometres?
I don't think so. Not even the great Sundby. Because Niskanen, compared to Driehaug, did lose a little. But I think the pace was good enough from Niskanen to keep Sundby behind. And Sundby, if we look at the split at our split point of 5 at 6.4 kilometres, he was 9.9, and Sundby has dropped down to 13.1. And that tells its own little story.
Paul Goldberg at 2/3 distance was 31 seconds off the pace of Niskanen, so actually hasn't gained anything, hasn't lost anything. He's travelled in a funny sort of way. He's travelled at his own speed, but that's not bad from Goldberg. He's put himself into 7th place, so that puts 4 Norwegians in the top 10. Sjurota, and Sjur was best part of 40 seconds off at 2/3.
I think he's Sjurota, more a freestyle athlete. He's very good in the classic. Got 25th here last year in the 10-kilometre classic.
Yeah, he's been leaking time though, and Niskanen, he knows he's on the podium, doesn't he? I mean, he must know that, but you know, does he quite believe that he's actually not only just going to get his first podium, but actually get his first victory?
I think he's frightened to look at the monitor. He can't believe that this could be the best day in his racing life. And taking Finland back again to the pride where they once were, able to win World Cups regularly.
Yeah, Järvi was the man who was putting the Finnish flag on the map for so many seasons. But now with Niskanen at the age of 22, they've got somebody who can, you know, be a winner, and maybe today is the day.
Hey, we might eat, or I might eat my words. Sundby has got it back down to 9.6 seconds at 26 minutes of racing, and it's certainly an advantage getting all this information. So Sundby moved from 5th into 2nd place.
Yeah, but you've still got to say that that's only 3,600 metres, and he's got to get back 10 seconds. Remember, Niskanen was no slouch in the last bit. How much energy has Sundby got? can he produce the charge? We would love to see a fighting finish here, as we see Alex Harvey, who may well be destined to be the best Canadian out there and eclipse Devon Kershaw's time. Alex Harvey was at 11.4 kilometres. He was the best part of 30 seconds behind.
Still lovely, smooth technique from Alex Harvey. Equally good in classic as he is in freestyle. Not Northug's day. You can see how tired he is skating around a corner. Still good though. He's going to finish in the top 20, David, I would imagine, or will he? By the end of the race, that is.
Yeah, well, there you can see, interesting, not much quicker than Colonia.
Andrew Musgrave still 1:16 behind as he was, which is great racing. 26th position at the moment.
Legjanin. Now, Legjanin, the last check we had was 13.4 kilometres, and Legjanin had dropped to 30 seconds, and he's lost some more, as you can see, as he comes to the finish line now. So for the first half of the race, he was sort of matching pace with Niskanen, but the second half of the race was all belonging to the Finn. And Niskanen, yeah, I think he's, you know, he's Sundby's. That's it. That's his only concern, Sundby.
Sundby coming up soon.
It's 13.4 kilometres. We'll get an indication, really, with 1,600 metres to go, if Sundby has significantly reduced that 9-second deficit. So Ruta coming through. This is not a bad effort by any means from him. Ruta, with 1,600 metres to go, was 45 seconds behind Niskanen. So again, another athlete who hasn't found a lot but hasn't given away a lot in the last phase.
Keep around here, please.
Yeah.
Just behind Devon Kershaw.
Well, Niskanen,
So all the Finns are holding their breath, the same as Niskanen.
he can't look anymore. He's got to run.
No, yeah, it's just too painful. Well, actually, one of the things is, despite the furry rug, the longer you sit in that chair, now that the temperatures are really beginning to drop, actually it's not as comfortable as you might think.
Well, I think his coach has said, listen, you know, he's been sitting there so long with an early start number because of his ranking from last year.
Get going,
the coach said, right, get moving, get rid of the lactic, can't sit there all day. And well, where is Sundby?
Here's Sundby. Now, you remember, 9.6 seconds, something like that?
It was.
At 11.4, 9.6 seconds exactly. So this has to be 4 or 5 seconds if it's got any sort of chance. And Sundby still on the climb, still trying to get to that.
Big slip there, David.
There you can see, that's the timing point there.
I think Niskanen, if he is watching a monitor now, he's believing that because of him slipping, if Sundby wasn't slipping, he'd have a fighting chance. He still has a fighting chance.
Yeah, but he's not eaten into that deficit, has he?
No.
And when you come up here, excuse me, you have 1,900 metres to go and 1,900 metres to get 14 seconds back. It can't happen, surely.
No.
It can't happen because the man who's in the clubhouse, he's got the time, and the other man's challenging, and I can't believe that Sundby and Niskanen's decided that he's got it. He's seen Sundby's time, and he's now, well, he's conducting the choir. He's conducting the Finnish fans, because this is a really important point for a male victory early in the season for the Finnish men's team.
It really is, and then historically they haven't had a top podium position since 2001 here in Finland.
Yeah, and there you can see the advantage. Niskanen from Vuokatti in Finland, and some decent performances there. Järvi, that's a respectable performance for him. So at the moment, the way they're sitting now, Finland 1 and 2, Druhaug is in third place, but he's the man who's going to get knocked out of this.
But remember, Driehaug took 7 seconds off Niskanen from this point, from the 13.1 to the finish line, 7. But Sundby, if he had the grip wax that he had at the start of the race, it would be possible.
And there's Musgrave at the moment. That's 13.1 kilometres. So it's still a respectable performance. Hadestad, who's probably just trying to get some endurance and strength into his preparations.
For an out-and-out sprinter, David, over 15 kilometres, Hadestad 1:34 behind. It's brilliant, and he's getting better. He picks and chooses the odd endurance race that he does. He's an out-and-out sprinter, and it seems to be getting better every season.
Rickardson, well, hasn't happened. Just on that topic, you know, people say, well, why would Hadestad actually run a 15-kilometre race? But, you know, people forget, don't they, that, you know, in a sprint you do the prologue, the quarterfinals, the semi-finals and the finals. So that's where you need that endurance base from which you can actually develop the gears to sprint.
I think it's over a 4-hour period. You need it is endurance when you're out there all morning. You have to feel the technique over those 1.4 kilometres times 4. And I think that when Hadestad started nibbling into these endurance longer races last year, well, clearly the Olympic gold medalist in the sprint, it helped his game again.
So Niskanen waiting for Martin Jonsrud Sundby to come home, but just worth giving a good reflection. At the Olympic Games, he was 10th in the 50-kilometre mass start. He was 25th in the skiathlon. At the last Junior World Championships, he was 4th over 10 kilometres in the classic style. That was Erzurum 2012. That was his best Junior World result. He then, last season, was up into the under-23s. He left the junior ranks and won the 15-kilometre classic. He's had barely half a dozen starts in World Cup. Never had a podium. Was 4th last year in Oslo in the 50-kilometre finale mass start, the longest race of the season. And then now, as he watches on the big screen, Sundby coming home, now goes from, in terms of World Cup, from 0 to hero.
Total hero, and Juha Järvi up there as well. So a great day for Finland at this first World Cup. Sundby, he's not going to do it. Not possible now. He tried, he put a heck of a pace up the final climb.
Well, this is the interesting point, because remember, Juha Järvi was 12 seconds behind Niskanen. So the congratulations are there. Now's the time. Now, is he going to get home inside the 12 seconds? Probably. Probably.
He has lifted his game over this last section.
Yeah. But not by much. So Juha Järvi gets the bronze. Driehaug's off the podium. One Norwegian doing a disservice to another. But Niskanen owns Ruka.
He's saying, today I've landed. All my life wanted this, and he's got it at 22-year-old. Milk it.
Yeah.
Quite right.
Well, first World Cup victory. So many aspire, few achieve. He's done it. He'll be 23 in January. This is Mr. and Mrs. Christmas. Well, I think he's given them the present, not the other way around.
Hey, and Finnish cross-country skiing have needed this. They've needed to see this improvement. It's taken, what, 13 years since the major scandal, but they're back now.
And this is the adrenaline. Look at this. You know, he's done 15 kilometres, all the training, up early this morning. And, you know, he's almost sprinting up and down the stadium here. Now, that's a high.
Well done. That's how much it means to Niskanen. He's always had talent. The coaches say that this man was special, and today I think he's proved that on the world stage. Did the early start number help him, I wonder? Generally it doesn't, because you don't know what these guys are going to do behind you. He just gave his best, and boy did he go out hard, Niskanen. I thought maybe risky strategy, but he suffered the pain and did drop off towards the end, but suffered the pain in his first title.
His start number reflected his ranking, and therefore he didn't have any choice. He had to run the race he had inside him, and had inside him physically and mentally, because it's the harmony of mind and body.
in technical skiing, in any sport where you have to relax and try and keep the technical aspect strong as well as the physical push, it's a marriage between mind and what is going on in all your muscle groups. Sundby looks disappointed. he wanted a win here as well.
Well, hats off and all the prizes. Congratulations. It's a red letter day for Iivo Niskanen of Finland to achieve his first World Cup victory. They didn't break 35 minutes in the end, but who cares? He got the better of the World Cup champion, Martin Jonsson Sundby, who's in good form, as we know from last week in Beterstollen. And then Sami Joijärvi, solid performance there in third place. Can't complain about that at all. Druhag for Norway in fourth place. Besmetnik of Russia deserves a pat on the back. The best Russian performance. Kalle Halvarsen, the top man for Sweden. Alex Harvey, the best for Canada. And then Heikkinen completing the top 10. And just trying to chase up here, Andrew Musgrave. 33rd. Well done, Andrew. Well, I hope we can hear from Niskanen. Well, there you have it. The cross country in Lillehammer continues next week. It's a freestyle sprint over in Norway, then a 5 and a 10k freestyle sprint virtually on the Saturday for the men and women, and a pursuit on Sunday in both classic disciplines there, and plenty to look forward to in what is effectively round 2 of the cross country World Cup. I hope we can most immediately. We have the conclusion of the Nordic combined, then the mixed relay of the biathlon season, and then those Alpine Thanksgiving races from North America to finish off the day. Outstanding performance there, 2 of them. Teresa Johaug demolished the women in 10 kilometers. This man has announced himself on the world stage. Iivo Niskanen, Finland. Remember him, he's special. From Mike Dixon and myself, David Goldstrom, for now, bye-bye from Ruka.